Well, shalom everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. This time around we are looking at Siman 85 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, that is the abridged code of Jewish law. And the subject today is a very fascinating one, and I'm sure you're going to find this very interesting. It is entitled The Laws Regarding a Fire That Broke Out on Shabbat. I'll read it again. The Laws Regarding a Fire That Broke Out on Shabbat. Now, many of us coming from a Christian background, and most of us going into a Messianic walk and following a more Hebraic interpretation, or I should say really a completely Hebraic interpretation of who the world calls Jesus. And we're trying to get our heads around where we sit in the framework of things now, coming out of our lives as Christians and coming into this new, exciting and vibrant new walk. And a lot of times what we'll do is we will tend to look at Rabbinic Judaism, which is the chief and most popular form of interpretation of the Bible by the priestly class of mankind, which is essentially the Jews. And we will look at laws and customs, or we'll hear of laws and customs that they adhere to, and then we'll look at Messiah's teachings, and we'll have a tendency sometimes to just read headlines, as it were, and look at and relate polarizing statements about what Rabbinic Judaism believe about certain things. Now, it's commonly believed in the Messianic movement that if a fire breaks out in a home, in a Jewish home on Shabbat, that the halakha is that they are to leave the home, make sure that people are out of harm's way, of course, and they are just to watch their house burn. Well, in this Siman, we are going to get way more information than just that, and ultimately, when all is said and done, we find that that isn't actually the case at all. It's a fallacy. It's an absolute fallacy. For anybody to say that, it's not true. It's now, when you start reading the law, you will see that it says something similar to that. And remember, we're looking at the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is not a discussion or a debate, which is what the Mishnah and the Gemara pretty much is. They're discussions and looking at different aspects, at different observances from different angles, and maybe having slightly different executions being discussed and in mind. Whereas the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, that just tells you what the halakha is. And this is what's so amazing about this work. And by the end of it, you're going to see that it's not as cut and dry as that. And I really hope you stick with this entire video, because I am going to blow your mind with this information. And it's not my information. I'm like you. I've just read it and I'm relaying it to you. And I think it's important that we do this halakha justice, because the current interpretation that's out there, it's woefully inaccurate, and we need to set the matter straight. Okay, so the laws regarding a fire that broke out on Shabbat. Let's go. This Siman is made up of 8 seifim. Number 1, what may be saved. Number 2, assistance by others. Number 3, carrying. Number 4, neighboring houses. Number 5 through 7, sacred books. And number 8, danger to life. One of the things before we get started is I want to make the viewer acutely aware of the fact that it's of the utmost importance that even during a crisis or calamity that befalls one on Shabbat, that a person still remember that it's Shabbat. And it's very easy to forget as soon as a crisis unfolds that it is Shabbat. And even Yeshua himself said, not long before he was executed, he made a very interesting statement. He said, pray that your flight is not on the Shabbat. And so that statement is basically saying that when the calamity of the time to come comes upon you, if it does, pray that it doesn't make life all the more difficult and happen on the Shabbat. Because even Yeshua is attesting to there that you can't act in the same way that you would act in a weekday if the calamity came upon you. That's a very important thing to remember. Extremely important thing to remember. Okay, so let's get into it. It is prohibited to extinguish a fire on Shabbat, even if this would result in extensive monetary loss. The sages understood that when a fire breaks out, a person is often in a state of panic, and due to his concern for his possessions, he may come to extinguish the fire. They therefore established guidelines concerning the efforts one is allowed to make in order to save his possessions in such a situation, as will be set forth in this Siman. Now you've got to remember that the Shulchan Aruch is not discussion or debate. The Shulchan Aruch is halakha. It just sets out the halakha. There's no discussion, there's no travailing over various subjects and various points of view of the subjects. It just shows you the halakha. And so for that reason alone, I honestly believe that at the very least the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch should be something that is studied first before one launches into the Mishnah or the Gemara. Because if one reads, and it's only 5 volumes, one can get through it reasonably quickly over the course of time by simply just reading 2 pages a day. And if one has that under their belt, and then they choose to go to the Gemara and to learn, they'll be across a lot of subjects already, and it won't be a completely foreign. A lot of the things won't be completely foreign to them when they come to subjects and topics that are being discussed. One must keep in mind that in a case where there is a possible threat of danger to human life, all necessary measures must be taken to remove the danger, and the fire may be extinguished even by a Jew if necessary, according to Orakaim 3:29:1. See Saif 8 for further discussion. Okay, so there's no argument that if it's a life risk, that whatever needs to be done can be done, and there's to be no restraint to be enforced. You just do whatever you need to do, whether that means putting out the fire yourself or not. A lot of times we're ill-equipped to fight a fire. Certainly in going back 100 years, we're even less well-equipped to fight a fire than we are today. Be that as it may, the fire brigades still prefer that we get out of there, get all life out of there, animals if possible, and people, and let them do their job. Number 1, if Elohim forbid a fire broke out on Shabbat, our sages of blessed memory were concerned that if the head of the household and members of his family who live where the fire is located were to engage in saving their possessions, being that they are agitated and panicked over the potential loss of their possessions, they might as a result forget that the day is Shabbat and extinguish the fire. So you can see the concern here is to maintain an awareness of the set apartness of the day, even in a crisis, which is a difficult thing to do. Hence why the Messiah said, pray your flight is not on the Shabbat. There had to be some sort of reason why he said that, if it's just no problem at all. Moreover, it is even prohibited to move such items, to a place which one would ordinarily be permitted to take objects out on Shabbat. Some of the footnotes that accompany this text. Number 1, it is even prohibited to ask an idolater to extinguish the fire. However, one need not stop an idolater who wishes to extinguish the flames. And so most people, locals, people living nearby, they don't want the fire to spread to their home. They're going to go in without waiting for approval to put out the fire. And we're told that we don't have to stop them. In fact, now it says it's prohibited for an idolater to extinguish the fire, to ask an idolater, I should say, to extinguish the fire. But it says, if he wishes to extinguish the flames, one need not stop him. Okay, I want to make that very clear. In fact, in this situation, one may even tell the idolater, whoever extinguishes the fire will not lose, i.e. he will not go unrewarded. Okay, so that is using language in a not so obvious way to tell the non-Jew that they can put out the fire, but not directly telling them, taking into account that the person is aware of the set apartness and the difference of the day. So a lot of the things that we would normally do, we are still allowed to do largely, but we are to go about doing them in a different way to keep us aware, constantly aware of the uniqueness of the day that we're in. Isn't that amazing? And I love this about Judaism, is that a lot of what they poskin about different things is to enable a person to maintain an acute sensitivity and awareness of there being this day is a foreshadow of the world to come. They're very serious about it. You're gleaning information. You're becoming acquainted with writings from people who are really serious about their observance. They're not at all flippant about it. They're serious about it. Okay, let's continue. Only that which he needs for the day is he permitted to save. Okay, so straight away when somebody says, according to Rabbinic Judaism, if your house burns down, you're to leave the house and let it burn down. So far, that's not correct. There are different parameters and different circumstances, and to a degree, one is allowed to save certain possessions. How is this halakha implemented in practice? If a fire broke out on a Friday evening before the meal, he may save enough for 3 meals, and he may save that which is fit for human consumption for people, and that which is fit for animal consumption for one's animals. If the fire broke out on Shabbat morning, he may save enough food for 2 meals. If the fire broke out on Shabbat afternoon, he may save enough food for only 1 meal. Stick with me. If there is a large quantity of food in one container, i.e. more than the amount needed for 3 meals, such as a basket full of loaves of bread or a barrel full of wine or the like, since he carries it, i.e. the basket of the barrel, out at one time, it is permitted to save the container. So already we're getting a picture here that some things are being rescued. And if circumstances are in a certain situation, are arrayed accordingly, an entire barrel of wine is allowed to be removed, and a basket of bread that might be a week's loaf of bread can be removed, as if somebody's going to sit there and try and work out, how many more meals have we got left? It's a very tricky situation. A person is very prone to panic, and so the halakha is just grab it and go. Don't negotiate that. Okay, that's fine. Just take the whole basket, take the whole barrel of wine, that's fine. So if somebody says they're to leave the home and let the house burn down and do nothing else, that is not correct. The person is either ignorant to the halakha or they're being deliberately misleading. And there's another 5 pages of this to go, because we could have just stopped at the very opening sentence that says it is prohibited to extinguish fire on Shabbat, even if this would result in extensive monetary loss, because that's similar to the statement that gets trodden out. But there's more. So we have to be very, very careful and know what we're talking about if we're going to talk about these certain subjects. Okay. It is permitted to save the container. Similarly, if he spread out a sheet or the like, and he gathered into it all the food and drink that he can carry out, and he takes them all out at once in this package, it is permitted for him to do so. So if a fire breaks out, you quickly stretch out a sheet, you put everything that you can in the sheet, you pick the sheet up, you grab the sheet bundled up together in your fist, and you run out of it. So pretty much we're getting a picture here that's it seems pretty straightforward and seems pretty reasonable. That one would pretty much act in many ways like this on a weekday if a fire broke out. But the idea is always to keep the concept of Shabbat present in the person's mind, even in the midst of a crisis. And if one can do that, maintain his awareness of Shabbat even in the midst of the worst crisis that would break out, then it's a huge merit to that person. He is permitted to take out all utensils that he needs to use that day. Let's have a look at some of the footnotes. That is, one may not even remove the belongings to another house or property enclosed courtyard to which one may normally transfer objects if one person resides in both both properties, or if the required eruv has been implemented by the residents. According to the Kitzur, the sages prohibit saving items except for those enumerated further in this safe, even the fire, even when the area is properly enclosed with an eruv. Now, an eruv, when it has been arranged, an eruv is a perimeter that is erected around a Jewish dwelling that is permitted for one to carry objects in for the Shabbat. Now, some halakha, I'm going to be releasing a video shortly, or it's probably already up. Depends when I put this one up and the other one up, on Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, and he posited that it's impossible to have an eruv in modern day. So that'd be interesting, because that would nullify a lot of what this footnote is referring to, which, please forgive me, because that footnote that I read actually goes back quite a ways. Moreover, it is even prohibited to move such items to a place to which one would ordinarily be permitted to take objects on Shabbat. So that was the footnote to that. I'm behind on my footnotes, sorry. Since one may not eat until he has fed his animals, he may save food for the animals as well, up to the amount that would need to be fed 3 times. Biur Halakha 334.1. Now, we're not even sort of 2 pages in, and we've got our hands full of things that we're meant to be rescuing. Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I have to be very, very careful when we make these flippant comments. And we hear them. We hear them from other people. We go, oh yeah, according to Rabbinic Judaism, if your fire burns down, you just to walk out and let the house burn. That's being antagonistic, and it's deliberately being generalizing to try and prove a point or add emphasis, really. It is not permitted to place individual containers with their contents into such a sheet. For each container is distinct, and gathering the containers into a large one does not confer upon them the halakha of one container. Instead, all the food should be placed out of their containers directly onto the sheet. And so the best scenario would be to take the container out and then go back, if you can, if you're not endangering your life, and put the food on the sheet and then bundle the sheet up. It's saying that you can't put the containers on the sheet and then put multiple containers on the sheet. And the thing is, it's going to be beyond your ability to even probably pick it up. Depends how big the containers are, I guess. If they're Tupperware containers, sure, you could probably put a lot of them in. But the idea is that the sheet option is for food that isn't in a container. Because at that time, you don't have time to open containers and take out what you just need for the rest of the Shabbat. So you may take out the entire contents of the container. Okay, so save 2. The owner of the house may tell others, come and save for yourselves. And every person may save the amount of food that he needs for the duration of the Shabbat based on the number of meals he has yet to eat. And so most people who are upwardly mobile and maybe have enough wherewithal to fight a fire, they're going to be involved in fighting that fire, especially, of course, if they're non-Jews, and they're going to save whatever they can save that would normally be apportioned to them if they were Jewish on the Shabbat. And so ultimately, we're getting a picture here that you pretty much can save just about everything if the situation, goes a certain way. Or each one may save one container that contains even a large amount of food as above. So we've got multiple people going in and being able to actually do the same as the owner of the home, the head of the house, and do the same. So multiple containers can be saved. since the owner has in effect rendered all his possessions ownerless. Okay, I think I missed a sentence there. The amount of food that needs to be for the duration of Shabbat based on the number of meals he has yet to eat, or each one may save one container that contains even a large amount of food as above. That which was saved belongs to the one who saved it, since the owner has in effect rendered his possessions ownerless, and this person who saved them has acquired the items from this ownerless state. If the one who saved the items is a God-fearing person, and he therefore returns to the owner that which was saved, despite being entitled to keep it, since he knows that the owner did not relinquish his ownership by his own volition, but rather due to circumstances, he may accept compensation for the effort for saving these items. So the halakha is, the items become ownerless, the person can save them, and technically the items that they saved are all theirs, but a person who is kind knows that the items wouldn't have been theirs in normal circumstances, so they return them. And most God-fearing people, even Gentiles who are righteous, would do that. This is not considered payment for work on Shabbat. So this is the person's so if the person decided to compensate them, the Jew decided to compensate them in some other way. Since by the letter of the law, all that he has really saved belongs to him, i.e. one who saved the items. Nevertheless, it is an act of piety not to accept compensation. So the Jew offers the compensation, and the correct course of action is to not accept the compensation. Is to go, no, it's fine. And they get the merit of doing a great mitzvah. Nevertheless, it is an act of piety to accept the compensation, not to accept the compensation, for the effect of saving something on Shabbat, even though it is not considered payment for a service performed on Shabbat. For a pious individual should be liberal with his possessions regarding any matter that has even a trace of sin. Footnote says, in this case, a pious individual would wish to distance himself even from the appearance of accepting payment for services performed on Shabbat. Okay, so save 3. All of the above halakot in which one is permitted to take items out of the house apply only to carrying them to a place to which one is permitted to take out items. But it is necessary to transport the items to a place to which it is forbidden to carry. But if it is necessary, rather, to transport the items to a place to which it is forbidden to carry on Shabbat, it is forbidden to save anything. However, with regard to clothing that can be worn, one may dress or wrap himself in all the clothing that he can, and take them out in this way even to a public domain. I'll just go back a few sentences there because it does sound a little bit confusing. All of the above halakot in which one is permitted to take items out of the house apply only to carrying them to a place in which it is permitted to take items out. So within the confines of an eruv. There's a footnote to that too. This is the properties are halakhically considered a single property, or an eruv kitzurot has been implemented. One may certainly not take out an object from a private domain to a public domain, or even to a kamilet. These domains have been defined in Siman 81. A kamilet is another area, is another partition. And so this is not something that is brought about by being observant of the Shabbat when the house is on fire. These are things that a person observes normally on Shabbat anyway. And so the possessions are to be taken to a reasonably safe place within the eruv, within the perimeter. It is forbidden to save, but if it is necessary to transport the items to a place to which it is forbidden to carry on Shabbat, it is forbidden to save anything. So if you can't find a safe place within 2,000 amos, which is a Sabbath day's journey, which is the limit, of the perimeter of the encampment, then it's they're saying you can't take it that far. You can't take the items beyond that point. I may have to look at that. I don't know. The 2,000 amos is 1.7 miles. I think they're referring to here to the courtyard. the courtyard or the actual property itself. I just want to clarify that. I don't want to give any wrong information there. Okay. So you can put on as many amounts of clothes as you can fit. And then you hear these people say you got to walk out of the house and let it burn. Like, that's not what it's... We're reading a whole encyclopedia of information of things that you're meant to do. It's insanity. Insanity when people do this, and it's irresponsible. And I can't abide it at all. It's just, it doesn't do the cause any favors, I tell you. Okay. And return and put on my clothing and take more clothing in this way. Hang on, let me go back. Jeez, this is a long sentence. However, with regard to clothing that can be worn, one may dress or wrap himself in all the clothing that he can and take them out in this way, even to a public domain. He may then take off the garments and return and put on more clothing and take out more clothing in this way. He may even repeat this procedure all day long. The owner may also tell others, come and save, and they too may save clothing in this manner. So pretty much all your clothing can be saved. I don't know anybody who's in a burning house can have time to do all this. I don't know anyone, Gentile or Jew, who has any time in a normal situation when they wake in the middle of the night, the house is burning down, to do all the things that we're being told that you are able to do, as long as it's done according to these certain parameters. I don't know anybody who would have time to do even probably a third of these things. But no, we have people say, if your house burns down, you are to leave the house immediately and watch the house burn. Number 4. Jason, what are you referring to? Number 4. Regarding the residents of the neighbouring houses where there is no fire, but they are close to the flames and are afraid that the fire will reach them as well, the halakha is that since they are not as much of a panic as those whose home is already on fire, they are permitted to save anything, not only food, or and in any quantity, and to take it to a place which one may carry on Shabbat. It's talking about Jewish people. So if you're not directly affected by the fire, but it looks like it's going to spread to your house, save anything you want. Oh my gosh. So if you hear anybody make this statement, if you hear anybody say, oh, according to Jewish halakha, if your house burns down, you're to leave and let it burn, jump on them straight away. And just go, you are off your head. That is not what Jewish halakha says if a person's house burns down on Shabbat. Do a number on them, because this has got to stop. Some authorities say, within reason, some authorities say even money and other valuable objects that are in the neighbouring houses, even such items that are mukseh, meaning you normally not meant to touch these on Shabbat, fire or no fire anyway, may be saved from a sudden great loss. There you go. And as such a fire, flood waters or robbery, and such as fire, flood waters or robbery. This can be done by placing any food item upon the mukseh items and carrying them together in this manner. However, under other circumstances, one is not permitted to move mukseh items in this manner. So even mukseh items are overridden to be moved if there's a crisis, if there's a fire. There are other authorities who are even more lenient and hold that one may move the mukseh items even by themselves, i.e. without placing a food item on them. Because normally if it's a mukseh item you can't move on Shabbat. If you move something that is permitted to move, you can put that on the item, so that item's sort of, a plate for that for the item or the food, and then you're permitted to move it. You think of all these stupid rules, you might think they're stupid little rules. The idea is to keep your mind front and center that there is something different about this day. There is something unique about this day. And while the other 6 days of the week you're able to do all these other things, now you've arrived at Shabbat it is the destination. There's no more accrual of merits and sustenance, because the idea of the 6 days is each day is like a millennia, is like an object lesson of each millennia, and then when you get to the 7th day, the 7th millennia, all that you accrued for in your toil for those 7 days, you're now receiving the rewards for. So you're meant to have this concept that whatever you accrued to sustain you for the period of rest, this is what you get to enjoy. And so it's a practice run for the Olam Haba, for the world to come, if you like. The whole idea of the Shabbat. That's why it's so important, because Hashem's saying, I want you to practice to get ready for eternity. It's like, that's amazing. As long as he does not carry out any items to a place to which it is forbidden to carry on Shabbat. There are other authorities who are even more lenient and hold that one may move the muktzah items even by themselves, i.e. without placing food item on them. According to this opinion, in a case of a sudden great loss, such as these, the prohibition against moving muktzah is set aside as long as one does not carry any items to a place which it is forbidden to carry on Shabbat. Say 5, regarding all holy books, whether handwritten or printed, we may save them from fire, or flood waters, or the like, and if necessary, they may even be carried to a courtyard or alley to which it is ordinarily forbidden to carry on Shabbat, due to the fact that an Eruv Kitzurot was not implemented. This applies only when the courtyard or the alleyway were arranged in such a manner. The Eruv Kitzurot or Shitufei or Mevaot would be effective had they been implemented. So these are various markers that are put up at openings of courtyards and walkways, which enable Jews to know on Shabbat where they can go carrying something and where they can't go to carry something, if these things are set up in a Jewish area. Sometimes they are not. And so listen, we just read, you can save all your holy books. So there's no way I'm going to have time to save all this, if this, heaven forbid. It's just, by the end of this, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. And so there's probably hundreds of people out there thinking this wrong idea, and then they tell somebody else. It's just a comment that they heard and they pass on, and it's got to stop. Every time they're doing it, it's just doing them enormous damage, and will do them enormous damage in the future, and have do them eternal damage in the hereafter as well. Because the person that they told, they still might be alive after they're long gone. And so their Gehenna continues. Continue for a long time after they're passed on. Hang on, why am I still in Gehenna when I've done tshuva, I've been cleansed, purified of all my sins, not done tshuva, purified of all my sins, because the things that you said when you were alive, they're still traveling around. So you still have to receive some sort of punishment for that, because you're the person that was a link in the chain that helped initiating that false ideology, that false concept. Make people apicorsim, makes people heretics. Okay. I'm a bit animated in this video, aren't I? I'm a bit more excited. I wonder why. Okay. Regarding rescuing a corpse from a fire on Shabbat. Hang on, I'm going to go back a bit. Through the service of an idolater, it is permitted to save these items even by carrying them through a public domain. So you can even beyond an eruv, if you've got a Gentile helping you. I mean, they're not going to be told to go and do it. They're going to see a house burning down. They're going, okay, I'm going to help that guy save his possessions. Regarding rescuing a corpse from a fire on Shabbat, see below Siman 88, Safe 16. I don't know whether that's going to get covered here, because we're up to Safe 8, which is the last, well, we're nearly up to Safe 8, which is the last Safe of this Siman. Number 6, very short Safe. We may save a container of holy books or scrolls together with the book or scroll, and the container of the tefillin with the tefillin, so you can save your tefillin as well. even though you don't even use tefillin on Shabbat. Number 7, a Torah scroll has precedence to be rescued before other holy books, and that's a no-brainer. That's safer. 7, safe 8, practically all mitzvot of the Torah, whether positive or negative, are overridden. In a case of a life-threatening situation, pekuach nefesh, that's a life risk, the laws of Shabbat are no different, and in any case of even a possibility of loss of life, one may and in fact is required to implement all means possible to remove the danger. See below Siman 92. Rather than being considered a desecration of Shabbat, his actions constitute a great mitzvah, and our sages praise one who reacts swiftly in such a situation. Orachim 329:1. When there is a concern of a possible danger to life, it is permitted to extinguish the fire. Therefore, in places where Jews live among idolaters, it is permitted to extinguish the fire. Oh wow! You can tell you can tell a person who is not learning, or maybe a few years ago, or maybe a couple of decades ago, they were learning. But maybe for the last 2 decades, they've sat on their laurels. Maybe, I'm just saying, maybe. Even if the fire is in the home of the idolater, all actions must be determined by the circumstances of a specific situation. Even when there is a danger to life, only extinguishing the fire is permitted, and may not, however, desecrate Shabbat in order to save money or other valuables. If someone violated this halakha and desecrated Shabbat to save such items, he should go to a rabbi to ask that he show him the proper manner to repent for this sin. And that's it. That's all the halakha. There's a lot of footnotes here. Let's read some of them. 27, I'll read for the last point. Going to the rabbi to ask forgiveness because you saved some possessions when the circumstances were in this situation you probably shouldn't have. Okay, the prohibition extinguishing a fire to save one's possessions applies only when directly extinguishing the fire. When faced with the possibility of monetary loss, one may, however, contain a fire or even cause it to become extinguished by pouring liquids over the surrounding area where the fire has not yet been reached. Oh my gosh. The more you learn, the more you go, oh wow. We've got these sweeping generalizations of rabbinic halakha. And I think it's because a lot of people maybe they're into the Gemara and the Mishnah and they're not really into the Shulchan Aruch. And I find the Shulchan Aruch more fascinating than the Zohar, to be perfectly honest. People say, oh, you read the Zohar. I find the Shulchan Aruch to be way more fascinating. Because it's full of things that pertain to me to have a weight on me or some bearing on me to consider and implement. Whereas a lot of the stuff in the Zohar is just pie in the sky stuff. Don't get me wrong, the Zohar is a holy book. Oh, heaven forbid I'm bagging the Zohar. But it's up here and you're down here. And before you go here, you need to know how to do your first jump off here. That's the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged, not the Shulchan Aruch. That's the Shulchan Aruch's huge. It's massive. The abridged, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Go and purchase the entire Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Study 2 pages a day, and you begin your journey. And you can join me in that journey, and I'll help you, and you can help me. Therefore, if a candle fell on the tablecloth on Shabbat, one may pour liquid on the area where the fire has not yet reached, or place plastic containers or water nearby that will melt from the heat of the fire and extinguish the flame. See, this is what gets me so angry. If the fire breaks out on Shabbat, you look at the fire. Oh, it's burning. Let's leave the home. That's not true. That is not true. And we're reading it here. I'm not making this up. This is an art scroll product. This is art scroll. I'm pretty sure it's art scroll. Yeah, it's art scroll. Masorah. Feel like Alex Jones. Calm down, Jason. Calm down. Obviously, if by attempting to put the fire out only by direct means, a possibility of danger to human life may result, one may take any and all necessary measures to extinguish the fire. And so what happens if you did extinguish the fire directly, you do something that you knew you shouldn't have done during the crisis? Even if you violated any rabbinic prohibition, according to Mishnah Berurah 334, 77 through 78, however, one who violated Shabbat laws in order to save a life does not require atonement at all, as his actions constitute a mitzvah, not a sin. Mishnah Berurah Bid 78. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope I've cleared up things with a house burning down on Shabbat. I hope this is helpful. The laws regarding a fire that broke out on Shabbat. And it's made up of 6 pages. The Shulchan Aruch itself is probably way longer than that on it. And then when you start to learn it, you start to think, okay, so that's not the case. I can actually save quite a few things, and there's so many circumstances that come into play. But the main thing is that I do not forget that it's a Shabbat, even amidst the crisis. Yeshua himself said, pray that your flight is not on Shabbat. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope this video was informative and helpful. I hope I didn't come across sounding too arrogant and having too much of an ego there. Please forgive me if I did. And I hope you join me on the next video. Thank you very much, and bye for now.